website is votenader.com, votenader.org. We call your attention to the web, which has been a roar with Nader campaign positions, and it has certainly drawn thousands of people to this campaign. I will. Ladies and gentlemen, a real populist from Texas, here is it, Jim Hightower. Right.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. What a joy it is for me to join you, rowdy and raucous agitators for American democracy, preparing to take our country back. As we gather here, the MCI center of all places, this bastion of populism, just to say no to politics as usual, just to say no to the non-choice of Al Gore and George W. Bush, Miller Lite versus Bud Light, mighty small beer, either way you look at it. But we're not gathered here just to say no. We've come together all across this great country to say yes, to giving our great American democracy a Ralph Nader jumpstart in this presidential year, to build a new political movement from the ground up that is of, by, and for the ordinary people in this country. You know, Kermit the Frog is famous for saying, "It is not easy being green." But it is with Ralph Nader in the lead. This is what America's all about. Agitators getting together to take their country back, to be in charge of our own political destinies. Now, the powers that be don't like this at all. They don't like you and me going outside the corporate-approved duopoly. Ralph Nader and you and me drive the establishment crazy. Now, of course, that's a pretty short ride for most of them. I noticed that Senator Harry Reid recently came out, apparently woke up that morning and had an extra helping of Fruit Loops, and came out and said, "Ralph Nader is a selfish person. He has no respect for the process." Whoa. Well, neither did Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine have any respect for the process. Neither did Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass. Neither did the populists and the wobblies, the abolitionists and the suffragists. Neither did Martin Luther King Jr. and Cesar Chavez. Be proud of being agitators, just like these great American patriots have been agitators. After all, the agitator is the center post in the washing machine that gets the dirt out. That's a good thing. We need more of it. We hear both political parties, for example, talking about the so-called prosperity that is sweeping America. Unprecedented economic growth, we're told. In fact, Money Magazine had a cover article recently that said, "Everyone's getting rich." Hello. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. Everyone's getting rich. Average wages today are beneath in real buying power what they were when Richard Nixon was president. This is prosperity, even though it's our labor, our creativity, our productivity that's sent corporate profits through the roof and stock prices as well. Sure, Wall Street's whizzing, but it's whizzing on you and me. Think about it. So our job is to stop the stealing. Let's dare, as the founders of this great nation did in 1776, and as every people's movement has had to do since, to take the dangerous route, to go outside the establishment and go with the people themselves. Trust the people, build with the people. The good news is the people are ready, yearning for a new politics that not only reaches out to them, but is them. And the people know that they're not given a choice with Gore and Bush. After all, we know the difference between chicken salad and chicken shit, don't we? I mean, it's pretty clear. We've been told by the powers that be, we've been scolded by the New York Times even, and told that we've got to stick with Al, that we've got to go with the status quo. You know, a farmer friend of mine once told me, Hightower, status quo is Latin for the mess we're in. We've got an old saying in Texas that if you found that you've dug yourself into a hole, the very first thing to do is quit digging. And if we don't quit digging in 2000, we're going to be in a hole in 2004 and 2008 and 2012. We're going to dig deeper and deeper. Let's get out of the hole. Let's build something for this country. A real opportunity. I travel this great land, and I can tell you people are not sticking with the status quo. The folks are in rebellion against the status quo. United Students Against Sweatshops, the people who are fighting for a living wage, public financing of our elections, not to mention that little Seattle Tea Party of just over a year ago, huh? I'll tell you what happened in Seattle was we opened a great old big can of kick-ass, and they can't put the lid back on it ever again, ever again. The people are on the move. Time for a new politics that's got passion in it. A politics that matters again. A politics that rallies that workaday majority that's now shut out. A politics that, as we say in Texas, is hotter than high school love. Let's get it on. And we've got the opportunity with Ralph Nader to build that politics beginning next Tuesday. Who's really going to fight for health care for all people? Gore and Bush or Ralph Nader? Who's really going to challenge the globaloney gotcha of NAFTA and the WTO and the other acronyms of globaloney? Gore, Bush, or Ralph Nader? Who's really going to fight for public financing of elections? Gore, Bush, or Ralph Nader? Gore and his corporate Democrats would say to us that we're the spoilers. We're in Al's way. Well, wait a minute. We didn't spoil the Democratic Party with billions of corrupt corporate cash. We didn't spoil the Democratic Party by downsizing the middle class and shutting out more than 1,000 farmers a week off the land in this country. We're not the ones who tossed 1 million low-income moms into the streets saying, get a job, when they knew there were no jobs with a living wage, no jobs with health care benefits for their children. I come to you as a Democrat, been elected as such in the state of Texas. We're still laughing about it down there. But I now look up at my party at the national level, the corporate Democrats, and I see that my party has taken off the old Sears Roebuck work boots and strapped on the same Gucci's and Poochies that the Republicans are running around in. And we've got to find a way to create a new political channel for the people who are being shut out, knocked down and stomped on. Even a dog knows the difference between being stumbled over and being kicked. We're being kicked. It's time, if you want to fight back against the status quo, if you're tired of business as usual, being shut out by the exclusivity and elitism of the economic and political powers, then it's up to you and me to build something new. In my book, if the gods had meant us to vote, they would have given us candidates. But the truth is, of course, the gods don't give us candidates. We've got to do that ourselves, and we've got to do it at a grassroots level. You have the power. You have the power. Patti Smith has that wonderful song, people have the power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fools. That's what we're starting in this election process. And I'll say to you, the most important day for you and me is not November 7th, it's November 8th, because we continue to build all across the country at a grassroots level. I'll leave you with this thought. It's something that my old Aunt Eula said to me years ago. Eula was a farmer up in northeast Texas, and she said something I didn't understand at the time, but I think I do now. Eula said to me, Jim, The water won't ever clear up till we get the hogs out of the creek. Now, right there's our problem, isn't it? The hogs are in the creek. They're fouling our economic, political, and environmental waters. I don't know how much you know about hogs, but you don't get a hog out of the creek by saying, here, hog, pretty please. You get a hog out of the creek by putting your shoulders to it and shoving it out of the creek. That's our job. Thank you very much for the great fight you're making.
While the band tunes up, just to vamp here for just 1 second, let us remind ourselves that Ralph Nader advances positions that are not radical. We're going to hear a lot of hysteria over the next 2 days, and we've heard it already. A lot of fear and loathing out there is provoking a lot of people to say very, very untrue things. Ralph Nader's father was a small businessman. Ralph Nader watched his father run a restaurant in Winston, Connecticut, in which it was famously reported you could get a dime's worth of coffee and $1's worth of conversation. Ralph Nader believes in free enterprise. Ralph Nader believes in an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. Ralph Nader wants parity between corporations and workers. Ralph Nader doesn't believe, as apparently so many in America do, that corporate power is good and union power is bad. We want it to be easier for union workers to organize trade unions, to coalesce, to meet the enormous power of America's corporations. Ralph Nader believes if you build a better mousetrap, you ought to be rewarded for your genius and your skill and your innovation. What he does not believe is that one company ought to be able to buy all the mousetrap companies so they're the only ones standing and can raise the price without fear of competition and gouge all the people with mice in their basement. This is what we want to stop. This is what we have the power to stop. We are, after all, the people. Are you close? Ralph Nader was raised not to go with the political winds of the time. When he came home from the 3rd grade, he said, "Mommy, I'm wearing shorts. I'm wearing shorts. All the other kids are wearing long pants. They want to know why I wear shorts. I should wear long pants. I should wear long pants." His mother said, "You go back there and you tell them you wear short pants." Somewhere in this raising, somewhere in this Lebanese tradition, has come a man who is not going to be influenced by the contemporary fickle political winds of our time. So when people say, "But you've got to raise millions from corporation if you're going to run for president," just as his mother said, "You tell them you wear short pants," Ralph Nader has told this nation, "I'm not accepting illegal contributions. I'm going to take contributions as prescribed by the FEC. We are proud to be the only horse out there obeying all the rules." Ralph Nader's mother Winston was flooded in 1955. Flooded. You couldn't move. The entire main street of Ralph Nader's hometown was underwater. Halfway, anyway. You couldn't get into it. Totally paralyzed the city. Ralph Nader's mother, Rose, a month later was in a line to shake hands with Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Prescott Bush, senator from Connecticut. And as he came by, he was shaking hands, and she reached out her hand, and she said, "Senator, we need a dam to control the Mad River." He said, "Yes, yes, yes, thank you." And he kept moving as candidates do, and she didn't leave go of his hand. "Senator, we need a dam." "Yes, yes, yes. Senator, she didn't let go. Today, the Mad River Dam stands as a result of her citizenship and her banging on a very big door. And she taught her little boy, Ralph, how to do the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to present a woman who's been at the center of our popular culture now for a long time. A single mother, a woman of conscience. She not only sings, but she has a fabulous heart, and she is a true Democrat, and she's been a guerrilla on the front lines of this candidacy. I am pleased to give you Patti Smith right here.
Thank you, everybody. I have one simple thing to say. For me, a vote for Nader is a vote for Nader. And none other. The garden of consciousness turns in fertile mind the dormant seed, blooming into charity. Conscience breathes a sigh of relief. Confessions of sleep, unfolding peace. Moved by love to serve, we celebrate all merit in life. Confessions of sleep, the awakening sleep. And we extend according to need, and you will hear the call of action great and
Give of your heart, one heart. Give of your voice, one voice.
Thank you. Each one of us has a voice that is symbolized by our vote, and each vote is precious and meaningful. And on the 7th, please vote as your conscience dictates. No more, no less. We would like to dedicate this little song to Winona LaDuke. And we should like to thank all the volunteers, all of the volunteers, the Green Party volunteers, everyone who works so hard, who is unsung, who is virtually unthanked except for the work that they do, which is its own reward. And we want to thank everyone that's come out from New Jersey or Philadelphia, Arlington, from Virginia, and Northern Virginia, from everywhere, wherever you're from. Thank you for coming. What is it, children, that falls from the sky? Tai-yi-tai-ya, tai-yi-yi-yi. Manna from heaven, from the Most High, food from the Father. Tai-yi-tai-yi. Oh, we shall live again. Oh, we shall live again.
He led demonstrations calling for the passage of sanctions on South Africa. He brought 5,000 people to the South African embassy here and to consulates around this nation. He brought tens of thousands of people. 5,000 people went to jail. Here's a man who needs no lecture about working from the ground up to bring the rights that are embodied in our Constitution, and the dignity of all people is promoted by the work that this man did. Nelson Mandela's out of jail. Sanctions worked. Everybody criticized him at the time, but off he went to jail in handcuffs and everything. I am proud to present to you the president of Trans-Africa, Randall Robinson.
Thank you. For the better part of a century, the Republican Party has been hostile to the fundamental interest of America's black community. Consistently, Democratic Party candidates for the presidency have sought and received our support, only to turn their backs to us upon assuming office. Nonetheless, for all of my adult life, I have voted for Democrats seeking the presidency. I cannot do that again. Many have said to me that the black community has little choice but to vote for the lesser of two evils. I reject this notion. Indeed, the habit of accepting the lesser evil serves to erode democratic society. We have at least two alternative courses. The first is the course of hopelessness, which spells the slow, silent death of our democratic system, leaving in its wake a husk of ritual without content. This is the course to be taken by 100 million Americans who on Tuesday will choose to not vote at all. Were Ralph Nader not running for the presidency, I would be, for the first time in my life, among their ranks. They are not homogeneous. Though largely young and poor, they will proportionately include women and men, blacks and whites, Asians and Hispanics. They have dropped out because they intuit that their vote means nothing, that it will win for them no response to their concerns, that deals have been cut, that public policy has been bought, that jobs have been peddled, that favors have been traded, that big money has made folly of the democratic exercise, fools of our citizenry. Those of us who have come here today have decided upon a second alternative course. We understand by our presence that in a democracy, responsibilities of citizenship cannot be fully discharged by the exercise of the ballot alone. That we are working to build a diverse popular voice untainted by corporate sponsorship, a voice for those millions who have been ignored and overlooked. Sometimes Sometime toward the middle of this century, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and African Americans will comprise the new American majority. If our society is to cohere, this will require of us strengthened democratic values, a new openness, improved communication between all of America's races. We must learn a great deal more than we know now about each other's cultures and stories and histories. For only from knowledge can racial understanding flower. With respect to my community, America must know not just about the struggles of Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and Frederick Douglass, but of the ancient African societies that gave 3 popes to the Vatican, civilization to Greece, and a wife named Zipporah to Moses. Neither the greater nor the lesser evil is courageous or thoughtful enough to take the long view of what democracy really requires. But Ralph Nader is. I have worked all of my life in global human rights advocacy. Some of those issues bring me here today. They are mere examples of the new load to which big money has brought American public policy. Today, as we assemble here, 7 democratic, friendly, steadfast, stable, decent Caribbean democracies are 1 second from midnight. St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Vincent, Grenada, Belize, Jamaica, and Suriname are losing their only markets in the world because the Clinton administration has exchanged their economic and political survival for a gift from Chiquita bananas. Neither the greater nor lesser evil talked about this in their campaigns, but Ralph did. Black leaders across our country rightly have focused on racial profiling. But the great danger is that we have missed the forest for the tree. For isn't it odd in a democracy with 1/20 of the world's population, we have 1/4 of its prisoners? Isn't it odd in a failing town like Malone in New York State, cities across America vying to build prisons, willy-nilly, New York State having doubled its number of prisons in the last 20 years, gaining at the same time with 2 new prisons, 1,400 new jobs, 18 new holes for the golf course in an all-white city, when 83% of the inmates in the prisons are either black or Hispanic. They're sentenced to more than 20 years for non-violent drug offenses, first offenses. And so we must remember that slavery didn't end in 1865. For what we're seeing now in America, in the prison industrial complex, is the new slavery. And what we must remember, and what Ralph alone among the candidates talks about, is that we have destroyed 2 cultures in our country. One, the culture of the first Americans. And secondly, the cultures of those who were brought here in the slaves of whole ships, in the hulls of slave ships, making wealthy companies of Brown University, Fleet Bank, my own law school, and Ralph's law school, Harvard Law School, endowed through the sale of Antiguan slaves. And so to understand anything about present conditions, we must understand the press from which we sprang. And lastly, it is important that Ralph, alone among the candidates, chose to close his campaign in the nation's capital. For this is the last American colony. This is the only place in America where we cannot have full representation in the Congress. And I say to you, to those who tell me that a vote for Ralph is a vote for Bush, I say to them that a vote for Ralph is a vote for Ralph. That a vote for Ralph is a vote for authentic democracy. That a vote for Ralph is a vote for the future of our country. That a vote for Ralph is a vote for the soul of the American people. Thank you very much.
We are getting there. Just in advance of introducing the man who will introduce our featured speaker. The march for D.C. statehood will begin immediately at the end of this rally, assembling at 7th and F, and marching to the Josephine Butler building. That's immediately after, so those who support, and we all do, statehood for D.C., gather at 7 and F right after the rally. If you wish to volunteer in the district area, if you wish to volunteer and contribute in these final 48 hours to the Nader LeDuc candidacy, here's 202-265-0633. The phone number is 202-265-0633. The headquarters is at 14 P Street Northwest. That's P as in Philip. It's between 14th and 15th. We're looking for you. We're very pumped. We feel we have momentum, and we think everybody's smiling. We've never had this kind of energy before. There's no other campaign like us. We aren't going away. In fact, we are here to win. And now, ladies and gentlemen, direct from his job where he models clothes for Ralph Lauren, here is the man who altered documentary making forever. He's Roger and me's, the guy my mother wanted to have. Here is Roger, here is Michael Moore.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, DC. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ralph Nader at the MCI Center. He's back there now making calls for 1 cent a minute. And he's calling all of you, America, to come and vote for him on Tuesday. I'll tell you, my favorite moment of this past week had to be when George W. Bush, I believe he was in my home state of Michigan, said the following: they want the federal government to control Social Security like it's some kind of federal program. I fully expected the next line to be, they expect the President of the United States to sit in the White House like it's some sort of White House. I mean, look, I gotta say, you know, and we're live on C-SPAN right now, so let me just speak to the people at home on a Sunday afternoon across America. We're all here today representing the millions of people who are going to vote for Ralph Nader on Tuesday. But let me make a personal appeal to the self-respect of the average American who may be watching this. I cannot believe, and I truly, in my heart of hearts, trust the American people that on Tuesday, they will not put a man in the Oval Office who looked you straight in the face and said, I've not committed a felony in the last 25 years. I can't believe that the good-hearted and intelligent people of this country will put a man into office who, by his own admission, was drunk until he was 40. I understand alcoholism is a serious problem in this country, and all of us have dear ones that we love, friends and family who have this terrible disease. The first step to recovery, as we know, is admitting I am an alcoholic. George W. Bush, to say that this was 24 years ago, to say that it was part of his personal life or his private life, I just have to say, if you go out on a public highway, that is not a private matter. That is not your personal life. If you go out on a highway when you're drunk, and to say that, if you just give me, I just want to say this, because if you come to us as the American people and you say, you know, well, it was 24 years ago. You know, 27 years ago, I was hit by a drunk driver. And to this day, I cannot fully extend my right arm because I was hit by this drunk driver 27 years ago. And it doesn't matter how long ago it was, because my arm is still in the same situation. And in those 24 years, Governor Bush, since you went out on the highway drunk, nearly 500,000 people have lost loved ones due to drinking and driving. So don't tell us this is some little youthful indiscretion. This is a serious, serious problem, and it's a crime that you committed. That you committed. Own up to it. Don't blame everybody else. Stand up and be a man and say that you have a problem. And we want to say to you that we don't want your finger on the button. We don't want you sitting in the Oval Office, because we think you have many problems. Not just this problem, but many problems. It took eight Nobel laureates this past week to go on television and say, George W. Bush, you will bankrupt the Social Security program. You have presided over a state where you tell us that education is such a great issue, yet according to the San Antonio News this week, 42% of all high school students in Texas are dropouts. Dropouts! And you want to tell the American people this lie that you're for education. We can go down the entire list from the people you've executed, the death penalty in your state, which has a higher crime rate than my state of Michigan, which doesn't have the death penalty. Now, some of you are wondering, why have I chosen to spend the first few minutes talking about George W. Bush? Well, that's because most of us have received a lot of phone calls and emails from our friends and family across the country this week wondering, what the hell are we doing on Tuesday? And I just have to say, look, you know, I understand when someone's afraid. Fear is a horrible thing. It's a thing that grips you, and then you end up making decisions that you are going to regret later because you operate from fear. And I have not called a single Gore voter this week to say, why are you voting for a man who, as part of this administration, is responsible for 1 million more people sitting in prisons tonight than were in prison during the Reagan-Bush years? I'm not asking you, why are you voting for a man who helped to dismantle our welfare programs and who have put the poor in this country in such a position that they may never recover? And you know, if you don't win, Mr. Gore, on Tuesday, it won't be because of Ralph Nader. It will be because of you and Mr. Clinton, because of what you've done to all these people here who are upset and angry and disenfranchised and dispossessed. You have put George Bush in the White House. You are responsible. We are the people who have spent 8 years trying to undo the damage that many of us did in 1992 when we voted for Clinton and Gore because it was the lesser of two evils. And what did we get when we voted for the lesser of two evils? We got evil. We still got evil. We got NAFTA and hundreds of thousands of jobs removed from this country and sent to sweatshops across the third world. That's what we got. We, though, today want to appeal to the people around this country, people who are afraid of a George Bush administration. We want to say to you, look, you got to do what you got to do. We understand this. We respect you. We're all going to have to work together come Wednesday, regardless who is in the White House. We're all going to have to fight whatever evil comes our way through a Gore or a Bush administration. It does no one any good to attack each other at this point when we need to be together to fight for the common good in this country. If you want Al Gore to win, why don't you stop watching me right now on C-SPAN and call up somebody who's watching a football game on the other channel and start telling them how you feel. Because for every minute you've wasted telling us why we shouldn't vote for Nader, that's a minute you could have spent convincing somebody they should vote for Al Gore. If you want him to win, I think you know what to do. You've got 48 hours. But those of us here, we're voting from our conscience. We're voting because we believe in something. We believe that when you start to whittle away at your conscience, when you start to compromise and settle and abandon your principles, that's the point where you start to back away from this country becoming a better place. You know, we've got to, it's going to be bad, I know, but we'll just have to do this. This is a horrible place to live because when you are in this environment, it creates a lack of faith in our democracy because you're asking people to do something they don't believe in. You're asking them to vote for the second worst guy. And when you start doing that enough times in your life, and I say this especially to the young people and the students who are the backbone of this movement, and thank you for being here all across the country. If you start at 18 years old, you can't vote at 16. I wish you could. If you start at 18 or 20 years old, not doing what your heart and your conscience tells you to do, I'm telling you, you're going to end up living your life that way and you're going to be miserable. You'll work in jobs that you don't want to be in. You'll be in relationships you don't want to be in. You'll just be compromising your entire life to the point where you'll forget that you were ever this young and that you believed in something at one time. Don't let that happen to you. Don't start now at this young age doing that. It's a horrible place to be. I feel really bad for the attacks that Ralph has had to endure these last few weeks. I mean, I truly, as a human being and as a friend, feel bad, Ralph, that you have had to listen to this crap from people who we thought were our allies. It's very, very sad. And I'll tell you why it's sad, folks. I'll tell you why. Can you name one piece of legislation that was authored by Al Gore or George W. Bush that has made this country a better place to live in? Go ahead, shout it out right now. I want to hear that thing that he's done that's made this country a better place. And please don't say the internet. All right, tell me something that either of these two individuals have done, because I'll tell you what Ralph Nader has done in the last 37 years. Because of Ralph Nader, the most qualified person on the ballot this Tuesday, we have the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Environmental Protection Agency, airbags, seatbelts, the Mine Safety Act, the Freedom of Information Act. That is what Ralph Nader has given us. That is what we have from Ralph Nader. And we owe him a debt of our gratitude and thanks. Let's go out there. Let's go out there. Let's go out there on Tuesday. Let's call our friends tonight. Let's send some emails. Let's get the vote out on Tuesday, because it will send a loud message on Tuesday to whoever sits in that Oval Office that there are millions of us that do not like what's going on. We want a country that is fair and just for all the people, not just the upper 30% or the upper 1%. We want to be a country where we vote our conscience. And as we look at the presidents that are carved on Mount Rushmore, think about this. Up on Mount Rushmore, there sit these 4 presidents. And not a single one of them, at some point, they all rejected the corruption of this so-called two-party system. Abraham Lincoln won as a third-party candidate. Thomas Jefferson won in a very close 3-way race. George Washington didn't even believe in political parties, didn't even belong to one. And Teddy Roosevelt, after having been a Republican, rejected that, started the Progressive Party, and came in second, beating the Republicans. That's who's on Mount Rushmore. That's who's on Mount Rushmore. We admire that, don't we? Let's admire it on Tuesday. Thank you, Ralph Nader, for doing this. Thank you for being this incredible thorn in the side of our political system. Because if you hadn't done this, Ralph, for the last few weeks, we never would have heard about corporate welfare or corporate criminals or all the other things that you've been able to talk about in the media that was ignoring you. What's the old Gandhi quote? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our good friend, Ralph Nader. Thank you.
is really great. Thank you. What a great District of Columbia welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again. Okay, let's go. Thank you. Thank you. Well, when Winona LaDuke started this campaign, we wanted to welcome everybody to what we called the politics of joy and justice, and we wanted to culminate this presidential campaign right back to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. This is the latest and the last of the giant super rallies where people from cities and suburbs and rural areas all over the country came to participate and support a campaign of political reform, a campaign that celebrates a new birth of freedom and justice, the freedom to participate in power and the justice to pursue in the only authentic way, to pursue happiness. It requires justice to pursue happiness. But I want to take this occasion to start my remarks by focusing on the plight of the people in the District of Columbia. This situation is no longer going to be a footnote in presidential campaigns, no longer going to be a photo opportunity for politicians. More than 500,000 people live in the District of Columbia. As the capital of the United States of America, the district is supposed to be the symbol of the freedoms for which this nation stands. The light of democracy is supposed to shine from the District of Columbia, but it does not illuminate this city. The core is hollow. The values of equality and political participation that the city is promised are denied right here in our nation's capital. Most Americans and many people abroad do not know, and they would find it hard to believe, that under our current system of disenfranchisement, D.C. residents are second-class citizens. The district is denied local control. Congress must approve the district's budget and can override any action of the city government. At the same time, district residents do not have even one voting representative in the Congress which controls the minutiae of their lives. The District of Columbia is effectively a colony with all local decisions directly subject to change by a Congress largely out of touch with local realities. If there's ever a rationale for the Green Party in the District of Columbia, it's based on the following. Al Gore has supported D.C. statehood in the past, but for the last 10 years has been utterly silent on the issue. George W. Bush is on record opposing District of Columbia statehood. Here's an important issue involving the democratic rights of 500,000 people, and yet there's been no debate whatsoever, and most Americans are unaware of the issues involved. Most people who live outside the district do not know that district citizens pay about $2 billion a year in federal income taxes, more than several states, yet cannot elect people to decide how their money is spent. District of Columbia residents have served and died in our armed forces over the last half-century in disproportionately high numbers
but have no representation in the Congress that decides whether or not to go to war. The United States is the only democracy in the entire world that deprives